On the eve of International Women's Day, VOA spoke to women in Accra, Ghana to get their thoughts on what more should be done to achieve more than the desired levels of gender equality.
I want to applaud our government, our current government now, for including most women in its government, especially Nana Jane being the vice. We are talking about Momo Latte, who is with the social welfare department, and then so many more. And I think that when we include women in our setups, we need to be put in positions where we can harness the abilities we have to enable the other women who are unheard to be heard, so that our country will be able to move forward. We know that when women are attached to men and we are equal, we can move to a point where we can see that things are moving on smoothly.
For instance, we have our first female vice president in Ghana. I think we can allow women to also achieve their aims, not look down upon them. It's like in Ghana, everything is the men. Penyimbia is the men. Everything is the men. Is the men. Is the men. We should allow women to also flow. They should also be whatever they want to be. Yeah, that's what I think. And this will help.
I don't really believe in that issue of equality. I rather believe in equity. That is the conditions that are favorable to a person to make the person thrive in a certain situation. So conditions should be favorable that will make women thrive in certain situations or certain settings or certain places or certain, should I say, programs and the likes. So for instance, most of the time we are always saying women and men are the same. We are rubbing shoulders with them. Whatever is given to them should be given to us. No, I think we should know where we can thrive and thrive, but we should know the strength of the women more, and then the strength of the men. So wherever our strength is, we should be like empowered to thrive more in those areas.
Women on the streets of Accra, Ghana, sharing their thoughts on how to achieve gender parity. Now, for more on Women's International Day, I'm joined live from Abuja, Nigeria, by Evelyn Dan Epele. She's the Managing Director and CEO of Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. Evelyn, welcome to Africa 54. I can hear you, Evelyn. Well,
can you hear me?
Now I can. Great. So let's talk about...
I was saying Happy New Year, Esther.
Well, and Happy International Women's Day tomorrow. Evelyn, let's go to what the United Nations has said. It says that it will take about 130 years or even more for women to reach parity with men economically. Why do you think it will take that long?
It would take that long because society is not necessarily ready for women leadership or female leadership. And I think I can say that with a lot of conviction, given the realities we have at hand in places where women have struggled to thrive in leadership positions. You see what's going on in other parts of the world. And here in Nigeria, there's a landmark case now involving a high-ranking female leader in the Senate who has publicly complained about the engagement with the Senate president, leading to a sexual harassment case that's ongoing. And that's really the theme of the month and the theme of the day and the conversations that we've been having. Mm-hmm. And within that framework is just analyzing the readiness of society to really accommodate women, women leadership, and in general, what women represent in society historically. And even up to today, yeah. So
when you look at what women have done so far, especially in the continent of Africa, what would you say they have advanced in terms of governance and in terms of even getting involved in politics and, you know, just making things happen where you say this is a woman who did this?
I would say that women in general have advanced in the application of emotional intelligence. And that's because several other women that have come before us in leadership positions have sort of failed publicly. And through their failures, the next generation of women have come to see why it's important in this struggle to maintain very high emotional intelligence, ensuring that, you know, beyond what's required for the job, that women are also able to compete favorably with the men, because really that's really what this has been about, that in leadership positions, you don't have too many women compared to the men, despite calls for affirmative action in some countries. And in general, the hurdles for women in leadership is just overwhelming compared to that of men. Yeah.
And quickly, Evelyn, what would you say internationally women have achieved so far?
Oh, I would say that women have sort of advanced in their understanding of leadership positions and leadership roles. Previously, we were speaking about equality versus equity. And the argument is that should we fill certain positions, whether they be political positions or just leadership position with women for the sake of achieving affirmative action, or should these roles be filled by women of competence, women of character, women of capacity? And I think that women all over the world really have risen to that position. You'd see multilateral organizations like the World Trade Organization is led by a woman. Here in Nigeria, you had Banker of the Year, Dr. Adora Umeji as well, a woman, and, you know, women everywhere excelling. Even myself, I must say, I became the youngest chief in Opobo Kingdom, my hometown, really heralding a new era of female leadership. And I'm really proud of women everywhere for just pushing through and pushing hard despite the hurdles.
Make sure you get out there tomorrow. We all have to celebrate this. Evelyn, thank you so much. Evelyn Ndanga is Managing Director and CEO of Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. The second day of the Powering Africa Summit is ongoing here in Washington, where U.S. companies are meeting with African energy ministers under the theme, The Future of U.S.-Africa Energy Partnerships. VOA Africa spoke to a number of officials who say they are ready to redefine how their countries see future investments in electricity and power infrastructure.
What's important for us right now is to define and reaffirm the US-Africa partnership, particularly in the energy sector, especially since there was an announcement of the closure of Power Africa. So we want to know what's next, and we want to redefine that partnership to be very targeted, to have very good outcomes, to be focused on development, economic prosperity, and of course the upliftment of Africans. But it's not just about general statements, it's about value chain development, it's about more energy production, and we're looking for partners in investment, we're looking for partners in innovation, and we're looking for partners in broader regulatory reforms.
This summit is important for Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is participating. First of all, Zimbabwe is looking for investors in the energy sector, but also as something to contribute in terms of how to work with investors. But also we've come to learn from others as to how we can attract various investors into our various projects. As you know, we've got an array of opportunities in the energy sector. We have abundance of coal, for example. So in terms of thermal power, we need more investors. That's a resource that we have over 200 years in terms of a deposit of coal. But also we have abundant opportunities in the renewable energy space. And again, we're keen to grow this renewable energy space, get more investors, so that we can diversify our energy sources.
Energy issues coming from the perspective of a global activity is being able to now put heads together, particularly with the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then ably headed by the Minister of Solid Minerals. We have energy across multi-sectoral. Particularly, we have a minister who is present, ministers who are present here, both for power, solid minerals, and the essence is energy transition cuts across all those. It's going to be from the oil and gas, it's going to be from minerals, and when you look at clean energy mineral, you must be able to now consider the future of energy lies particularly on clean, solid minerals.
African representatives, they are speaking on the U.S.-Africa electricity partnership. U.S. President Donald Trump says his administration has initiated the most extensive border and immigration crackdown in history. VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke with Chinwe Esimai, President and CEO of Scepter 3 Global Advisors, about President Trump's immigration initiative.
There's been a significant shift in the administration's policy as it relates to immigration, and most of that is around enforcement. So we've had a number of immigration laws on the books, but there's been a lot of frustration, especially over the last few decades, but it's really mounted in the last 4 years because there seemed to be a very deliberate posture and position by the prior administration, either not to enforce some of the laws on the books, or to put in place certain programs that made it easier for immigrants to either obtain or apply for asylum and then violate those applications, or to come into the U.S. So there seemed to be a very different posture with the prior administration, and President Trump is now enforcing those laws that have been on the books for a really long time.
President Trump ran on this issue, and the Americans agreed with him. But he has continued to get a lot of criticism in regard to how they have carried out some of these deportations. You and I come from Africa. There are a lot of Africans who have been deported, whose families have been, affected by these deportations. Your thoughts on that?
You were very right in noting that the president did run on this. He identified a high degree of frustration in a lot of American cities. If you look across New York City, which has traditionally been a melting pot, there have been a lot of concerns around the increase in violent crime in the streets, but also around taxpayer dollars funding immigration, immigrants, residents in hotels, helping them start businesses, and you just think about the tension that creates between, American-born citizens and people who are migrants, right? So you have certain American citizens who struggled for a long time to save up to start their businesses, to run their businesses, to maintain them. And then they see immigrants come who have their homes paid for, their residence, maybe not homes. In certain places it is homes, they were being put in homes, but in New York City hotels. So that raised a lot of concern. So I think as the administration is implementing the strategy, they do need to be careful as to the impact. They do need to be open to tweaking the strategy to make sure it's not reaching unintended consequences. So while carrying out the promises made on the campaign trail, how do you make sure that you're not impacting people that otherwise you may not want to impact? The administration, I think, is executing it to the best of their abilities, and there have been instances, whether on the business side or on the immigration side, where even supporters of President Trump may have been impacted by some of this, right? So I think it's a time of realignment, it's a time of readjustment, and hopefully once we have more of a steady state with the transition, I think we will be able to see laws that are more predictable, where people understand what the consequences are for certain actions, and maybe there's a little bit less fear about potential repercussions, but there's more understanding of what the administration's policy is and how people can expect to comply.
That was Chinwe Esimai, President and CEO of Scepter 3 Global Advisors, speaking to VOA's Paul Ndiho. Still to come in our entertainment report, the latest on Rwandan artist Bugingo Ndanga Patrick. Stay with us.
On the 8th of March 2025, International Women's Day will be celebrated under the theme For All Women and Girls, Rights, Equality, Empowerment. This year's theme called for action that can unlock equal rights, power, and opportunities for all by empowering the next generation, especially young women and adolescent girls. On the next edition of Our Voices, we kick off Women's History Month by taking a closer look at the call to accelerate action. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the International Court of Justice says Sudan has filed a case against the United Arab Emirates at the World Court for allegedly arming the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces and violating its obligations under the Genocide Convention in relation to attacks in West Darfur State. A UAE official says it is seeking immediate dismissal of the case, which says lacks any legal or factual basis. Sudanese officials have frequently accused the UAE of supporting the RSF, charges the UAE denies, but United Nations experts and U.S. lawmakers have found credible. In soccer, great Samuel Eto'o, 43, has successfully overturned a move to block him from running for a position on the governing body of African soccer. The Swiss-based Court of Arbitration for Sport found Eto'o's favor after he appealed a decision by the Confederation of African Football to exclude him as a candidate to join its executive committee. Considered one of the topic music producers in East Africa, Rwandan artist Bugingo Ndanga Patrick is at the helm of Rwanda's contemporary music evolution. However, in the past couple of years, he has stepped back from producing hits for the club to produce and curate an album that revives Rwanda's pre-colonial soundscape. Jackson Mvunganyi joins us now to tell us more. Hello, Jackson.
Hello, Esther. Happy Friday. In a wide-ranging conversation, Bugingo tells me that the project is the culmination of years of meticulous research and fieldwork as he traveled across the country to locate, record mostly elderly musicians, the last living custodians of these ancestral sounds and instruments. Let's check it out.
Ethnomusicologists worry that in an era of fast-moving musical trends and digital innovation, pre-colonial Rwandan music, once central to communal life, storytelling, and spiritual rituals, are being lost. Recognizing the urgency of preservation, veteran Rwandan music producer and curator Bugingo Ndanga Patrick, also known as Pastor P, embarked on a mission to document and revive the country's folkloric music traditions in a groundbreaking anthology album titled Ndanga. He tells me that for the project, he traveled around the country to capture sounds from the country's different pre-colonial regions.
It's a project that is tend to recover some sounds that are really getting lost. We're losing some sounds with the modernization, which is good, but I felt like there was a way to keep our sound and make it really updated without losing its value. So I went down to track and to learn a lot about our sound. And I've been finding we have a different sound. I've been hearing people say we have different sounds from different places. And I didn't know how to track those places. I felt like I need to go around and first listen to how they sound. And the project was to learn, but now it's more also to archive, to make some recordings. And because during my journey on the study, I've been recording some people, but after a few months, I could tell some people are passing because the old people we have who still have the culture, some are passing. So my really initiative was to go look for them, find them where they are, because they never had a chance to come to studio. So I take my studio over there, try to see, to record them in their comfort zone.
So how did you select the regions and the musical traditions to feature on the album?
So my grandpa used to tell me I'm from Chinyaga. And then I was like, what is Chinyaga? Because when I was born, it was called Cyangugu by then. And some people know it as Rusizi, now it's called Rusizi. But I tracked how pre-colonial, how did we call ourselves?
Pre-colonial boundaries.
Pre-colonial boundaries.
And regions, yeah.
And the regions. I used those regions. And I went to Kinyaga, to Gisaka, to Nduga, to, those. I really took a map and I could tell where now Gisaka was located and now it's Chirehe, I went there and tried to ask all the people who know the culture, who really are from there. They've been connecting me to some troops who can deliver the right sound of that real region.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those musical styles and instruments. Can you describe some of them and the regions that they represent? For example, I personally thought of the inanga as the only traditional instrument that is part of, musical repertoire. But I see that in this project you have other instruments.
Yeah, so whenever I go a place, I find something new. Like in Gisaka, they don't use drums. We normally do drums in Rwanda. But for them, they use something called Igichuba. Igichuba is like...
a god.
Yeah, a god.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they will use for as drum. They don't do drums. So they were like, drum is not part of what, they tell me. So I thought every Rwandan would play drum. So also in Nanga, it's there. You find it almost in all part of Rwanda, but it's played differently. Like people from north, they will play it different from people from south. According to the culture and the music, the style they tend to bring it to.
And that's all for this week's Entertainment Report. Esther, back to you.
Very nice, Jackson. Thank you so much. Be sure to join Africa 54 every Friday for our Entertainment Report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.
Os mediadores da Comunidade Económica da África Ocidental, CEDEAO, na Guiné-Bissau, prepararam um projeto de acordo sobre a data das eleições e abandonaram o país após o presidente Umaru Sissoko Embaló ter ameaçado expulsá-los. A missão da CEDEAO tinha chegado a Bissau a 23 de fevereiro para encontrar uma solução para as divergências entre o governo e a oposição sobre a data do fim do mandato do presidente Sissoko Embaló. No dia 2 de março, a missão deixou o país. Segundo Sissoko Embaló, o grupo extravasou a missão para a qual estava incumbido. Ele, que já presidiu a organização, questiona os objetivos da missão nessa visita. Qual o estado da relação entre a Guiné-Bissau e a CEDEAO e que futuro tem a organização? Começa assim o África Agora. Muito boa tarde, bem-vindo ao África Agora da Voz da América, comigo Mayra de La Salette e com realização de Betty Ayub. Transmitimos a partir de Washington, D.C. neste 7 de março de 2025. Hoje falamos com o especialista em relações internacionais, Mashoud Jalloh, sobre a relação da Comunidade Económica dos Estados da África Ocidental com a Guiné-Bissau. No continente, os países juntam-se na União Africana, que é uma entidade que olha para a integração no conjunto. Ao nível das regiões, grupos de países juntam-se para tratar dos seus assuntos particulares. Tal é o caso da CEDEAO ou ECOWAS.
Esta organização regional, Comunidade Económica da África Ocidental, foi criada em maio de 1975 em Lagos, na Nigéria. A Guiné-Bissau foi um dos 15 países fundadores. Cabo Verde, também de expressão portuguesa, se juntou em 1977. Na altura da criação, a CEDEAO afirmava como seu objetivo servir como pilar para o desenvolvimento da economia, avançar a autossuficiência dos Estados-membros, ser um bloco de comércio e cooperação económica. A organização diz que promove a cooperação em diferentes áreas, incluindo indústria, transportes, telecomunicações, questões monetárias e culturais. Na sua linha de visão, a CEDEAO diz que pretende criar uma região governada de acordo com os princípios da democracia, do Estado de Direito e da boa governação. Presentemente, a CEDEAO tem 12 membros, isso na sequência da saída oficial este ano do Burkina Faso, Mali e Níger, por desinteligências políticas. Com uma população aproximada de 300 milhões, os países membros prefazem um produto interno bruto de 734,8 mil milhões de dólares.
Muito obrigado ao Amâncio Miguel, que nos deu este explicativo sobre o que é a CEDEAO. Eu dou as boas-vindas ao nosso convidado, Mashoud Jalloh, especialista em relações internacionais, com especial foco no papel da CEDEAO na resolução dos conflitos na África Ocidental. Muito boa tarde e obrigada por estar connosco aqui no África Agora.
Muito obrigado, Elizabeth Meia.
Mashoud, Obrigada a nós. Mashoud, nós vamos falar sobre os últimos acontecimentos na Guiné-Bissau envolvendo a missão da CEDEAO. Mas antes, gostava de convidá-lo e a audiência a ouvir o antigo embaixador da Gâmbia na Guiné-Bissau, Abdou Jadju, sobre o que significa para ele esta fricção entre o presidente da Guiné-Bissau e a CEDEAO.
Aqui há um dito na Guiné-Bissau que diz que o peixe começa a apodrecer pela cabeça. Agora, isso quer dizer o quê? Quer dizer que a organização é moribunda, a organização tem muitos desafios, a organização não é aceitada pelos povos da CEDEAO, que consideram que é uma organização do chefe de Estado, mas que não serve ao interesse do povo. A missão da CEDEAO não tinha feito o seu trabalho de casa antes de chegar em Bissau. A primeira coisa, quando se pretende ir num país tão polarizado em termos políticos, é muito fácil ser muito mais manipulada. A missão mesmo foi manipulada na sua chegada. Ou a missão não leu os relatórios da representação sobre a situação no terreno, ou não levaram em conta esses relatórios da representação. Então, uma vez em Bissau, a missão chegou sem uma agenda clara. Mas, quando se pretende ir num país para uma mediação, a primeira coisa que se pensa é sobre uma mediação, ou o facto de ser aceito pelos protagonistas que acreditam